What's going on, everybody? Back again for another episode of Sunday Reset with Will and Friends. And today I'm welcomed by Stuart Kaplan. Stuart is a nationally recognized leader in aging services and the CEO of Self Help Community Services, one of New York's largest organizations serving older adults. With decades of experience across healthcare, human services, and affordable housing, Stuart has been at the forefront of reimagining how society supports aging populations, championing housing with services models that allow older adults to maintain dignity, independence, and stability as they grow older. In his new book, Your Aging Advantage: The 7 New Stages of Aging, Stuart and co-author Marcus Riley, who we also had on the show, make sure to check out that episode as well, introduce a powerful new framework for understanding aging. Moving beyond the traditional ideas tied to chronological age, the book explores the concept of the feels like age and outlines 7 evolving life stages, including the transformative flicker stage, where people may feel younger or older depending on the mindset, purpose, health, and community. Stuart, welcome to the show.
Great to be with you, Will. Thank you.
So happy you could join us today. And so, I thankfully I got a nice copy of your book ahead of time. And so one of the questions that I had just to kick us off is your book reframes the idea of aging as a series of stages rather than just a number. And I'm curious, why is that a more helpful way to think about aging, especially when it comes to mental and emotional well-being?
Thank you. It is because that's the way we live life. We live life in stages. Certainly, when you think about it, first from childhood, there are all kinds of developmental stages. When a baby is born, and then there's a toddler, and then there's an adolescent, and there are several stages until you get to 18 or 21 years old. But when it comes to adults, we typically have 3 stages. We become adult, we have midlife, and then we have elder. Um, but thinking of life in stages is different than using a chronological number. When you are 39 years old and you turn 40, somebody typically asks you, "Oh, so do you feel different now that you're 40?" And that 24-hour change, that crossover does not make a difference in one's life. People always say, "No, I feel the same as I did yesterday," right? Yesterday, today, tomorrow. But when you think about stages, it is a different way of looking at life. We live in groups of years, and it has to do with your mental awareness.
I will say, when I turned 30, I swear I woke up and my back hurt immediately. I think that is a little bit of a rite of passage, but I hear what you're saying. In my own life, I kind of walk in different worlds. I have a group of friends who I'm the youngest one, and then I have another group of friends, including my wife, where I'm the oldest one. And based on who I'm around, I can tell like, oh, I definitely act a certain wage, but it's never been tied to a number. It's more about how do I feel in the moment? Who am I around and what am I involved in? Do you think community plays a big role in how we see that number as it reflects upon ourselves?
I think it plays a tremendous role in a number of different ways. I mean, you mentioned younger and older. That is ideal because hanging with people who are at different stages of life influences where your stage is. And to the extent that that is something that happens on a recurring basis, it will have greater influence on the stage of life that you are in. On the other hand, the diversity of stages of aging helps you to think more broadly as well. And so the social circles you are hanging with will definitely influence the stage of aging you feel like you are in. And as will a number of other factors, but socialization is a very important factor in your stages of aging.
You mentioned the diversity of aging. Could you elaborate on what you mean by that term?
Sure. If you are in a stage where you are feeling more like, and to use a stage from the book, a mid-adult, that stage might have you are someplace in an area where your career is at a certain point in life, your family is at a certain point in life. Perhaps you have parents and they are at a certain stage of life. But if you are with people who are in the young adult stage, which starts at 25 years old, by the way, um, you will be hearing things that you may not hear in a mid-adult stage of life. So, technology is one that comes to mind immediately for everybody these days. Even those that grew up with technology in the last 20 years know that what technology is today is different than what they were growing up with. And yet their parents didn't understand technology. And so, each cohort is different. So, your perspective on what stage you are in and learning about other stages is really important. The mindset that you have in terms of how you live life and how you live life is an important concept in stages of aging.
I really like the way you put that, how you live life and what you go about doing. The first thing that comes to my mind is the type of activities that you're involved in. You mentioned technology, but I'm also thinking in terms of, are you part of a social group? Do you get a certain type of exercise? What type of exercise is it? Is it something that you do individually or in a team group? Do you think that those are the way you're talking about, or are there other areas where people could talk about from an activity perspective?
Yeah, well, certainly physical activity, and you talk about exercise, but doesn't have to be a formal exercise routine. Are you still out playing sports? Even though you may have been a runner when you were 20 years old, you can still do running when you're 70 or 80 years old. So, your physical activity is important. The psychological way you look at aging is very important. Do you see it as a continuous decline, or do you see it as providing opportunities for you in a new stage of life? And so, and the environment that you're in, certainly. Do you live in a rural environment? Do you live in an urban environment? Would you prefer to be on a mountain, or would you prefer to be in the heart of Times Square in New York City? Those factors all influence the way you live life. And again, how you live life is an influencing factor: physical, psychologically, social, and environmental. And all of those factors are discussed in the book as influences to your stages of aging.
Now, I want to go back to a point you brought up before with technology. So, because you hear it all the time, people say something along the lines of, "Oh, I can't keep up with this stuff." And they almost just retreat and they fall back. And it's understandable. I mean, you get to a certain point where you feel so far behind that it's like, why even bother learning? But technology is not going anywhere. So what advice would you give to, say, someone in their 20s or 30s, or maybe they don't work in a technology rich environment? How can they start building the foundation now so that when they get to their 60s and 70s and 80s, they don't get outpaced?
I think you want to remain open to learning new things. Learning and education, being open to learning is something that will keep you feeling at a younger stage all the time, because it's exactly the way you put it. You feel like you're falling behind. And if you feel like you're feeling falling behind, in fact, you will be falling behind. But if you're open to learning, you don't have to be on the cutting edge. You don't have to be ahead of AI, since the whole world is trying to catch up to AI right now. Everybody feels like they're behind. Um, but be open to learning about it, reading articles, tapping at the keyboard and doing a little bit of exploring on what AI is, just so that when the conversation comes up, you understand the concepts, and you will find that engaging with people who then are more involved with technology, since that's the area we're exploring, um, you will keep in the game. And staying in the game is really important in terms of your stage of aging. It's about your mindset. If you close yourself off to new ideas, new thinking, and again, depending on any stage of folks that you're hanging around with, it will tend to make you feel like you're feeling behind. Remain, take a step forward, stay engaged with all people who come into your life.
Now, we're talking about aging and learning as it pertains almost to like a skill set. But would you also say there's an importance to remaining, for lack of a better phrase, like culturally relevant along the way too, with maybe like, so you have your era of music, but then listening to the newer stuff, whether you like it or not, is there an importance in the aging process of staying relevant in that music?
I think it is. And again, you don't have to become the expert, and don't be who you aren't. I mean, don't you can't try to be somebody who you're not. So if you don't like the music, listen to it, be aware that it exists, acknowledge it, and then make a reference. When I was your age, whatever stage that is, or if you want to use the chronological your age, um, nobody understood my music either back in those days. And so it's the relatability, not necessarily being the expert in the newest music or technology, but it's the relatability to people who are at an earlier stage in life, or from a wisdom standpoint, people who are in a later stage of life. So it's not always about trying to go back in time. Sometimes you may want to advance in time. And we explore that concept in the book as well. And that you referenced in the introduction, which is the flicker stage, where you can jump from a stage you are in temporarily to another stage, advanced, or moving backwards earlier stages. And you could be there temporarily, or you could be there for a period of time. It could a year or more. You could be in the flicker stage as well.
I do want to pull on the thread about the flicker stage, but before we get there, I do have to give a small shout out to my father on this because actually this gentleman right here, Jay-Z, as if
Hmm.
you're from New York, I'm
Yep.
sure you're familiar with him.
Jay-Z.
And
Yep.
so, yeah, so when I was a kid growing up, I got into Jay-Z, Nas, all the entire New York rap scene. And that was really popular for my age demographic. And my father is, on the side, he's a musician and stuff. And he made it a point to say, what are you listening to? And who that is. And so Jay-Z was one of the first artists where like there was a bit of an overlap where he went, this isn't my genre, but I can appreciate the artistry of what he's doing lyrically. And it created a connection for us. And we still
Hmm.
have it to this day. We send each other songs and he'll send me something from, his era, but I'll send him something new that just came out last week that's like, hey, I think you might really like this. And we still hold that thread. And it began with, it's part of why I have that painting right there. So it began with Jay-Z of all people. So a special shout out to that. And I think I always credited him and my mom. They both my parents, I'm going to give them both some credit here. Like they both have done a tremendous job of staying relevant without trying too hard. Part of it's their jobs. My mom works in the media industry. My dad is an engineer. And so he always wants to know how things work. But I think they both have done a really good job of like always staying it. My mom had a Facebook before I did. And
There you
so I
go.
thought that was entertaining. But no, so I just wanted to give them a quick nod there too, because I know they both listen. So,
Make
but
sure that each of them read the book, and they'll pick out their stages. And maybe I should have been interviewing them for the book. It sounds like they have perfect fits. Perfect fits.
well, there you go. See, mom, dad, you are perfect fits. No, they're gonna get a copy of that for sure. Absolutely. But I want to, you mentioned the flicker stage. It's a term that I really didn't hear until I met Marcus. So can you tell me a little bit more about what the flicker stage means to you?
So the uh, first of all, the stages of aging are not chronologically set. We do assign numbers, age numbers to them just for reference points, but the stages can actually overlap. So one stage might be from 25 to 40 years old, but the next stage might be from 35 to 50. So there's clearly an overlap there because, again, stages blend. But when you are living life, how you live life, events occur, positive or challenges that could cause you to feel like you are in a different stage. It could be an earlier stage or a later stage. The classic example would be somebody who meets a 40 years old or 50 years old, meets a health challenge. And that health challenge lands them in a hospital for a while, and all of a sudden they're feeling as if they are no longer in an earlier stage of life. They now feel like they're in a later stage of life. Course of rehabilitation for a few months, and now you're back again. I mean, something simple like an arm, that gets injured, and or the rotator cuff gets injured, and you have it repaired, and then you're back playing tennis again. But for a while, you are feeling like you are in a later stage of life, perhaps 10, 15 years advanced from where you were feeling before the challenge. Certainly, somebody who is a young phenomena in sports at 25 years old or 20 years old will become more advanced and will be, as we discussed before, associating with people who are 30, 35, 40 years old, and they will feel more advanced. That period where you are moving from the stage that you are in to a new stage, forward or backwards, um, is we refer to as the flicker stage. It's the fluidity of aging. And fluidity, as you think about what stage of life you are in or how old you are, um, is what the flicker stage is all about. It's a what we think is a very cool concept because it's practical. It's the way people live life. And the book, Your Aging Advantage, is very much about how you live life. It's not on a chronological basis. It is not based on the date on your driver's license, your birth date on your driver's license. That's convenient when you need to show proof of what age you are, or if you need to do proof. Um, but the stage of aging and being able to move back and forth is what we refer to as the flicker stage.
And it's interesting because that's to me one of the great like concepts from what I've done with your book, and then what also just by talking to you and Marcus is the concept that that age is not linear, right? We do think of it as just this constant forward momentum, but to your point, life happens, and that can take you in either direction. You can meet a young person who maybe for any number of reasons has had so many life experiences, and the term old soul gets associated.
Yeah.
Vice versa, you have the person who's maybe much older chronologically, but big due to excellent exercise routines and great community involvement, the spirit of them, it's like, oh, you're how old?
Hmm.
And so
There you
you
go.
find that
Mhm.
that's the case. And it's so how can if I'm thinking about it, I know I asked Marcus this, but I'm curious your answer on this too. If I'm thinking about it in terms of talking, so I'm in my mid 30s, what should I be thinking about now to prepare myself to dance with this nonlinear path of aging and make sure that I'm doing it in the best way possible? Because, and my wife might get mad at me for sharing this piece of information, but we're about to have our first kid.
Oh, wow, congratulations. That's wonderful. That's a wonderful life stage.
Yeah,
Wonderful life stage. That's great.
it is wonderful. We're very excited about it. I'm joking. Yeah, by the time this episode comes out, he'll already be here.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
so we'll be in good shape. She's due here very soon.
Wow.
And
Great news.
so
Breaking news. Very good.
yeah, I have yet to say it publicly on much for a lot of reasons, and so that'll be fun for that. So, but I think about it a lot though, because to some people, I grew up in the Midwest, and so to a lot of people, being 35 years old, being a father for the first time is a very old age to start that journey. But then you talk to other people if that are from maybe New York or LA and
Hmm.
something, they're like, wait, you're a child still. What are you talking about? And I think that is a perfect illustration of the point of what you've been saying is that it really is reflective of who you're around, what you do, what are your activities, and what are kind of the social norms. But it's also about how you can experience it. So then that's not really a question. The question I have for you is, how do I maintain some of this youthful spirit as I'm about to enter watching my son be at the most youthful stage anyone can be?
That's great. Well, be engaged. And it's a boy, I just heard. So that's wonderful as well. Yeah, the family is one of the very important factors in social engagement and in stages of aging. So when you ask, so what should I be thinking about? Thinking about how you interact with family, thinking about the environment that you will be in with family, but also your physical activity. Because when a child comes, yes, you want to be on the floor, you want to roll with them, you want to be outside as he gets older, bicycles and balls and things like that. So, what you should think about, or somebody who is, trying to prepare for their stages, is the psychological factors, the physical factors, and again, how you are living life. Work often comes into that. And it depends on how people work. If you are a person who's at a desk, or if you're a person working with technology, or if you're a person, out with trucks or in construction, what do you do with that element of your life? Society's values that we have grown up with. You referenced before, Will, that, at 35, maybe that's, an older um, stage to be at having a child. I know numerous people who have had their first child far beyond 35 years old, far beyond 35. And so in my life, you don't fit in the category of you're an older parent. Yes, if you're talking to somebody who's 21 years old chronologically and they're having their first child, you feel a difference. But your mindset should be the same as the person who is 21 or 25 years old and having their first child, because the experience of having a child is the same for you as it is for them, regardless of the chronological age. So instead, put yourself in the stage of aging. I am a parent for the first time. You are a parent, Mr. 25-year-old. You are a parent for the first time. We have shared experiences. You were out with your child for the first time in a stroller. First time we took the baby out, or the 1 week old, 3 months old, whatever that is. But that experience is what you should be relating to, rather than the societal norm, which is 35 is a little old, that you have in your mind. It's not in my mind, but in your mind, 35 is a little bit older for having a child. It's the experience that you are having, um, that should be the determining factor of what stage you are in.
Yeah, and because to me, while not necessarily thinking about it chronologically, I do think a little bit, not quite the same stage as you were discussing, but the same kind of concept for me was how I looked at it. Is, to me, there are trade-offs. Yes, do I have maybe some of the same energy that I had in my earlier 20s? Maybe not. I don't know. I could argue some of that's my fault for letting that happen. And I'm working on. I was in the gym this morning before this interview, and working on those things. But where I lack maybe in some of that youthful energy and some of those things, I think I make up for the fact that I know I'm a more emotionally mature person than I was in my early 20s. I have more life experience. I'm further along financially, as another example. Like, I've got a bit more going for me, and I've got a good network and a good safety net. And I know so much of the struggle when you have a child earlier in life is finances. Finances are one of the big relationship daunting things. And if you're further along in life, that's a little bit easier. Not always, but it usually is a bit easier, a little bit easier to stomach. And so that's how my wife and I have traded off. And my wife's actually 5 years younger than me. So for her, it's not so bad. But for me, again, it's just more about who you grew up. I agree. I talk to people from other places and they're like, you're not that old. But when I speak to where I'm from in the Midwest, I mean, in my graduating class of high school, I'm one of the last people to have kids. And so it's an interesting way to look at it, because I want to bring it back to some stuff in the book. You talk about
Sure.
the culture and who you surround yourself with and how that affects things too. Because let's say you feel that your hometown or anything like that is not serving the life that you want to be from, a timeline perspective, an age perspective, but it is where your family is, where your community is. Do you think that there's an importance of saying maybe getting out of there, or do you think you should stay there, but maybe just make it a point to travel more? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say that life is a balance. If you feel there's too much of one thing, you should add other ingredients. If that means where it is that you're living is having too heavy an influence on who you are, then doing some more traveling or relocating, I, I think is a perfectly fine thing to do. But you want to maintain those connections. But everything comes with, in dosages, if you will. Too much of anything. I have always subscribed. Too much of anything is not good. But as you talk about various factors, the financial factor, where you are living, your wife's age versus your age, your community's age from where you came, all of those factor in. But acknowledging them and understanding how they have influenced who you are today. So then the next piece is how do you influence who you want to be in terms of stages of aging? And in the book, we actually have criteria for the various stages of aging for people to consider. And as you go down a list of factors, finances is one of them, where you live is another one, parents is a third, children is a fourth, many criteria. But you think about, how those factors are influencing the stage of life you are in. And I would dare say having a child right now is going to help you with that gym workout that you did early this morning. The baby's going to keep you moving, and it's going to help you as well. So, factor that in. And it becomes factored in not a in addition to, it is part of who you are now. And that part will influence the stage of life that you are in.
So someone's listening to this podcast and they're like, this sounds interesting. So how could they go about starting to identify what stage they're even in? And does that even matter? Or would you say just work on being more adaptable? What would be the better place to start?
Yeah. So, one of the things that's really important, as we, live life is planning. We don't plan enough for what our next stage will be or the stage that we are in. We just live life. You said here that, financially you are in a stronger position, a better position, whatever word you would like to use, than you were when you were 21 years old. Now, did you do that in a planful way, or did life just happen? And so, what I would suggest is that people envision where they want to be. You can envision it in a year from now. You can envision it 5 years from now. And that is sort of the time frame that we use is 1 to 5 years. 10 years is a little too much out there and you're not sure, what's going to happen. But 5 years, you can pretty much see forward that far. And what is it how do you want to live life then? And again, you go to where do you want to live? What is your financial situation? If you're still thinking about education, and you can think about education at any stage of life, but would you want to, advance in your educational stage, marriage. I mean, we've assumed marriage here because you shared personally, that but not everybody is at age 35, and so here you are thinking I'm behind the times at 35, but you are married. Maybe somebody isn't married yet at 35. And so, what do they think? So envision where you want to be in a few years and then begin to plan for how you get there. And it is not hard and fast. If you're not there in 3 years, don't fret. But if you're on a path to getting to the stage that you would like to be in, and again, that stage could be advanced or that stage can be earlier in life, and you could influence that. The fluidity of stages of aging is something that we believe happens to us, but we can actually influence it. But we need to plan for it. As you move to later stages of life, a stage that we refer to, when you're in, sort of the 60 to 75-year-old age range, something we refer to as settled in, that's when everything is pretty much in place. If you've had children, children are grown, they are often out of the house at that point. Your finances usually are in a place that are controllable. You've learned to live within whatever financial means you are. It's sort of a sweet spot in life settled in. Everything is sort of where it has to be. Now, that doesn't happen for everybody. I can paint a beautiful picture, but in some cases, something will occur, flicker will kick in, but you should work with that to bring yourself back into a stage that you want to be. But plan for it, because if a crisis occurs in life, and it happens at any stage, the challenges, the bus that you didn't see coming, um, it could set you back, no doubt. But you have to maintain a mindset that you can control the stage of aging you're in. There are challenges, and we characterize those as your potential. Potential could be expansive or it could be limiting based on a challenge, such as a health setback. Your potential becomes more limited then, but otherwise, your potential can be expansive. And so, potential, your passions, and how you want to live life should help to determine the stage of aging you are in.
I think that was so beautifully put. I have nothing more to add to that. I mean, really just having, it sounds to me like having a North Star is, you may not always be on the clearest path to it, but if you have a North Star to begin with, you know how to get back on track and get back to it. Is that a fair way to summarize?
That is a beautiful way to summarize it. Yeah, no, you've captured the essence. That's the essence.
That's that's the beautiful part. Well, Stuart, I can continue, especially with you and Marcus. I would even love to have you both on at the same time sometime in the future. But for now, we're gonna have to end this show. So, where can people get more information about your book? Where can they find it? When will it be available? And how can they reach out to you if they have any questions?
Thanks. The actual release date will be the end of April, April 28th. But in the meantime, you can go to youragingadvantage.com, and you can pre-order the book at this point.
Excellent. Well, Stuart, thank you so much for joining us today. And as always, everyone, be kind to each other, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, Will.